Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to have you here. I heard we have people joining in from London down to Australia. It's our very first AIoT ASEAN User Group webinar, and I'm very happy actually to be with you here. My name is Thomas. I'm part of the founding steering committee for the ASEAN User Group, and I will be your host today. No pun intended, Shobit, actually. We have an expert panel actually here today. We have a number of sessions for you arranged and presentations. And if we go to the next slide, I will show you the agenda very briefly. We'll start an introduction about what is the AIoT User Group and why did we actually decide to establish this at this point in time. It will then be followed by a closer look at what is at the core of the AIoT ecosystem which we want to build. And that is the know-how which we want to spread through that, the expertise, the experiences which we all are accumulating in the process of establishing and developing these solutions. We'll then have a look a little bit more closely into a very specific domain. So we thought we combined the first launch of this user group with a specific look at the domain, and in this context, the smart and connected building domain. And we have one presentation here which will then go through from CBRE to look at what are the user requirements from facility managers, from building owners, etc. And we'll then follow that up by our first two reference case studies. One of them, very fittingly, about the connected campus here in the Bosch building in Singapore, where we are currently at from. And we then will follow up from a look at the building from the outside. And the colleagues from TÜV Süd will give us an overview of an AIoT use case called Smart Facade Inspection. But before we'll start, I would love to introduce you to all the people here on the call, the experts, my colleagues around here. And I will start on the upper left-hand side for you with CK. He's the founder and CEO of AllThingsConnected. He was also one of the founders of the IoT User Group here in Singapore and in the region. And so this is, so to say, the successor or the follow-up from that. Then I have further to the left, actually from CK, we have Taranjot, actually. He's together with Shobit, who is also sitting here next to me, from CBRE, and they're responsible for the so-called host portfolio, which is a portfolio of AIoT solutions and services for their clients. So they will actually tell us a little bit more about what they see on a day-to-day basis. I then do a quick detour to Europe, actually, and we have two colleagues from Europe on the line also. We have on one side Marc from TÜV Süd, who will tell us a little bit more about the steering committee in a moment. And then we have also Dirk Slammer on the line too. He is actually one of the founders of the AIoT User Group also globally and currently chairing it. And he will tell us about the Ignite framework later. We then have on my right-hand side from you, Oliver Mali, who is actually the head of digital solutions and AIoT solutions here at Bosch in Asia Pacific. And then followed up by Martin on the utmost right side, who is actually the CTO for the digital services unit of TÜV Süd here in the region also. So with that, I would actually like to get started and would like to hand it over to Marc to actually tell us a little bit more about the founding of the user group and also about the current setup. Before I do that though, one comment still, please enter your questions into the chat. We will actually at the end have time for a panel discussion, and we'll try to pick up as many questions as possible, which you have entered through the chat function there. Over to you, Marc, please.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Greetings from Berlin, Germany. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you today, as you know. I would like to give you a short introduction on how it actually all started. My name is Marc from TÜV Süd. And how did it actually start? I mean, the user group was initiated by a group of subject matter experts at the beginning from certain interesting, really interesting companies like the German Postal Service, like Bosch, like Accenture. And it was initially an informal, small best practice group in a very, very small community because of the actually highlighted and feedback from the market and the industry. It was seen that it should be more than just a small community. it should be really set up a group of an open group with a real user group, as IoT User Group is existing now. And as you can see online, it now became really a powerful source of good practices, and important also at that time, with a really strong and established framework at the same time. And I mean, as it is important to mention that still at that time, it is a non-profit organization and very highly community oriented. And I think that is one of the key drivers also for the future for all of us to participate here actively as much as possible. And that is also the reason why TÜV Süd joined this AIoT User Group, not only as a participant, but also as an active driver in the steering committee. And for TÜV Süd, it is, I think, very important to mention that the safety and quality, yeah, not only for the environment, but for all of us, is our daily task. And we see AIoT really pushing this quality and safety aspects much more than in the past. And with this technology, we also are able to enrich our services in the business, but also in the daily life much more, and create so in this way a much safer environment. And as you will see also later in the use case presentations, I think it will be clear how important nowadays AIoT will become and already is. So please stay tuned. I think there's much more to come. Thank you so much, and I will hand on to more details.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marc. Thanks to Berlin, actually. And let's now switch to Sike, who is going to tell us a little bit more about what we have in mind, what is at the core of the AIoT User Group, taking over from Marc there.
Thank you, Thomas. I'm guessing you can hear me clearly. So welcome everyone again to the AIoT ASEAN User Group launch event, as well as the webinar we're going to discuss about smart buildings and facilities. Let me quickly run through the reason of why we're talking about AIoT, because you might be feeling this is another buzzword like we have been hearing every year last to talk about industry transformation. AIoT, primarily, as you can imagine, this is an intersection of power of AI and the IoT where they come together. As you know, AI has a lot of use cases in different industries like fintech or buildings or industrial or healthcare. Similarly, IoT, which is leaning more towards the hardware, communication technologies, and platform, but AIoT and IoT together will drive a lot of interesting and complex use cases, as we personally see, and personally when I speak to many leaders into industries as well as startup communities. So these are some of the use cases which we see will be really benefited by the AIoT initiatives. As you can see some of the examples, whether it is manufacturing, we're talking about predictive maintenance, or we're talking about autonomous vehicles, or smart buildings, as well as drones. So AIoT has unlimited use cases, and I hope with this initiative, we will be able to drive some of those use cases in collaboration with various ecosystem players. So now talking about AIoT ASEAN User Group, and we have three areas which we want to talk about here, the purpose, right? So why we initiated this AIoT User Group. The purpose is to hope initiate the industrial space with the potential of AI and IoT, as I mentioned. But at the same time, in this complex area, how we can initiate the good practices, the framework, and Dirk will talk about it, in collaboration with other players by hosting such knowledge session like today, or maybe providing trainings and services by the partners. Few key principles we have laid together to drive this in a very open initiative way, that is not a profit organization. We're not intending to do membership fee, as some of you might know from my background of IoTSG as well. And we are keeping it open for all the interested parties who are looking to drive and collaborate in this space. And benefits are unlimited, just to name a few, obviously, that AIoT as a complex area, it is better to learn from others by collaboration with other experts from other industries, and hopefully it will help you to shorten your timeline when you're initiating AIoT initiatives, either within the organizations or looking to forward to help your customers to get the benefit of AIoT initiatives. So As I mentioned, we are going to do a lot of activities, so stay tuned. We'll be hosting a lot of Ignite talks like one today. We'll also be sharing a lot of case studies in different industries, different verticals, and going forward, we'll be hosting some boot camps where we'll be inviting other experts also to share the experience. And hopefully in the time of Corona, we can drive some hybrid events in person or virtual like today. So looking forward, and I'm very happy to be part of the team, and I welcome you all to join us in driving this AIoT ASEAN initiative and get benefit out of it.
We still have a short moment actually to talk about why we are doing this here in ASEAN, right? And in this regard, let me just talk for a short moment why we have chosen to now do this also in this part of the region. And obviously, we have decided that AIoT is actually on the cusp of scaling around the world, taking AI and IoT together, bringing these two separate technologies, or not separate, but complementary technologies together. And we are also seeing now here in this part of the world a lot of impetus, a lot of momentum actually, whether this is in the building domain, which we are talking about today, or whether this is in the industrial space and the manufacturing space, in agriculture, in many other areas, we are now seeing the seeds of AIoT really taking hold and spreading out actually also. And so that was really the starting point. And if we can go to the next slide, then we can see here a little bit of a background about ASEAN, a little bit of a background about the ASEAN User Group here. And these are at the moment the people who came together now over the last couple of weeks to establish this. And we are, so to say, the facilitators for the next couple of months. And we'll like to open this up more and more. We really like to develop this into a very active community out here, developing the ecosystem around that too. So please feel free to join, approach us actually. I've introduced the people here on this slide already before, with the exception of Sachin, who is also on the line. He's not here in the room with us, but he's also part of the team from ASM Pacific Technology. And if we actually go on, we'll see in terms of the ASEAN side, here now. The reason why actually we were actually doing this here, and obviously ASEAN is a very growth-oriented region. We have a lot of people actually which are very connected in this part of the world. We have huge growth which we are going to see over the next couple of years, as you can see here on the slide. And the economic impact of AIoT is already very visible out here, very experienceable for many of us who are working in the field. As I mentioned already, we are seeing many manufacturing environments being digitally enabled now. We see that we are developing Industry 4.0 solutions in this context. We see that smart connected buildings, and we'll hear more about that in a moment, are becoming reality actually out here, reality in the truest sense of the word. And we also see that a lot of other digital services, whether it's in the e-commerce space, whether it's shared work environments, whether it's shared transport environments or anything like that, is really percolating throughout our day-to-day lives actually already. On the other side, ASEAN is a very diverse region. And we have many different countries. If we look at the GDP per capita, if we look at the GDP growth population, we have a very diverse environment here. And that is why we thought also it's useful to do this here, where we can take experiences from one country and spread that out into the rest of the region, and therewith hopefully accelerate this kind of momentum and get AIoT to really take a very comprehensive hold here too. So with that, I would really like to hand over now to Dirk, and therewith actually give him the chance to tell us a little bit more about the Ignite framework and the know-how sitting at the center of this development.